Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today I want to talk about something that we don't always think about, but of enormous importance. Like, why do we have a great diversity in the world? Why do we have evil when good is possible? If God is all-powerful, why do we have evil in the world? So, in this connection, I want to talk about what's the relationship of God and the world. There is a famous Hadith Qudsi, which means something that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, didn't say it himself, but God told him and he related it to people. And this Hadith Qudsi says that God is speaking, I was a hidden treasure. I love to be known, hence I created the world in order that I might be known. He wanted to be known, so he created the world in order that he might be known. Now, the Quran tells us how we might know God. We may know God by his qualities. And his qualities are his names. And the Quran reveals at least 99 different names of God. They're like, he's the one, the generous, the loving, the wise, the subtle, the hearing, the merciful, the life giver, the enricher, and so forth. And also the Quran tells us many times that everything God created are his signs. Now, what is a sign? A sign of something is that which tells us something about that thing. So by that definition, when God says everything are his signs, I would think, and great many Islamic scholars have mentioned, and mystics have mentioned, that it means that everything in the universe reflects the qualities of the Maker. Whatever we do, our deeds reflects the qualities of who we are. So God wanted to be known, and he created all this, because through that, through his creations, we might know. Now, Rumi conveys this in a beautiful verse where he says, consider the creatures as pure and limpid water, within which shine the attributes of the Almighty. Their knowledge, their justice, their kindness, all are stars of heaven reflected in flowing water. So all the wonderful qualities people exhibit in their being, in their behavior, the source is God's. These are ultimately God's qualities that is expressed through us. And this is why the Quran also says, wherever you turn, there is the face of God. And he is the first and the last, and the outer and the inner. Now, we see such diversity in the world. The point is, how can we philosophically, in a way, understand why is there a diversity? If God wants to be known, but how does that happen? If everything reflects, all his creations, it reflects God's qualities, exactly how does it go with the diversity of creation? And here, what Rumi makes clear is by the differences of anything, by the differences between any two things, we know each of them. If everything was same, then we would not be able to tell the particular message, the particular quality coming through any one of God's creations. So let's say an apple is like an apple, it's not like an orange, it's not like a pear, not a pineapple. The apple is different from other creations of God. So because of the variety of different fruits, we know any one of them, and because of the variety of every other thing, we know each one of those signs of God by which we may know something about him. So in this sense, the variety has a purpose for revealing God, and that comes through only when we can tell one thing is different from the other. By the differences, we know what each creation is conveying. Now, you may say that some things can be a little bit different from others, but a quality comes across most strongly when we find its opposite. So night and day, black and white, and so forth. Now that's one kind of explanation for diversity. What people, and this is not something difficult to understand, but people have much more difficulty when we talk about good and evil. People would say, why is there good and evil? Why do we need evil in the world? If God is the creator, He's all-powerful, why do we need evil? It's a very valid question, and there is no easy answer, I think. But Rumi provides some answer which I think are quite profound, among the most profound answers that I know of. First of all, he says, nothing is absolutely good and nothing is absolutely bad. If things were, absolutely good, there would be no difference between the thing and God. So it would be same as God. And nothing is absolutely bad either. Even people we may say are evil, or people or thing, some persons in history we might say, oh, that person is evil. But actually, nobody is 100% evil. I mean, philosophically, you might say, what does that mean? Because no one can exist without God. Without God's support, by definition, nothing can exist. So if anything exists, as long as it exists, there is something of the real with that thing, which makes the existence possible. Now, you might say, does that mean that God wills evil? Yes, He wills evil, but He does not approve of it. And by evil, by the existence of evil, God demonstrates, reveals Himself, because when you have the existence of evil in creation, we can tell by contrast what God is. So for instance, if nobody was rude and crude and cruel, we wouldn't know what a loving and generous, the qualities of love and generosity and kindness and so forth. So by contrast of these qualities, we actually know God, because these are these good qualities, the love, generosity, kindness, wisdom, these are God's qualities. We see the existence of the very opposite of these qualities in the world. And so God allows those things to exist, but tells us who He is. How would we choose Him? Because His qualities are such and such and such. So one of the names of God is not cruelty. His name is kindness and generosity. He is not the miserly, He's the kind one, He's the generous one, He's the forgiving one. You see the opposite of this all over the world, but our duty is to choose God and avoid evil. And so this is another way that the very existence of evil is there in order to make God's qualities clear to us. So whatever exists are in a way revealing God. The good is there because that's what God is directly, and the evil is there to make the good more apparent. Okay. Now, let's see. And Rumi gives some example, for instance, how good and evil are relative. For instance, he says in one place, there is no absolute evil in the world, for evil is relative. Know this also, there is no poison or candy that is not a support for one and a shackle for another. So when some things may seem on the surface evil to us, in the greater scheme of things, it is not evil. For instance, in nature we see one animal eating another animal, and we may say, oh my God, that's so cruel. How come this tiger eating this deer, this nice sweet deer is being eaten at a time? But to us it might seem like a cruelty, but through this cycle of life and death in nature, there is a particular balance maintained that would not be possible without this great variety and the existence of what we call evil. I mean, God wouldn't call evil, because through the existence of all this, God maintains balance in the world. Now, and the other purpose of evil or trials and tribulations, you might say, is this: that through trials and tribulations and evil, God lets us experience or lets us, bring forth those qualities that are hidden within us. Those are like wisdom, patience, generosity, kindness, or good judgment. Unless we face trials and tribulations, we don't quite know that we have these qualities, or we don't try to learn wisdom. Unless we encounter evil, we don't know that we may outdo evil by positive qualities we have. So in a way, these evil qualities and trials and tribulations, which sometimes they cause, and other times we can have trials by other means, these things exist in the world to, you might say, to make us realize that we have the qualities to overcome these things. So ultimately, we are God's vicegerents, His Khalifa. We are God's representative on earth, and we do have these qualities. So these evil and trials and tribulations that people often complain about are actually there to help us grow into, the grandeur that is possible as human beings. Out of human beings have come prophets. Out of human beings have been born saints. And how did saintly beings exist? Because they also faced trials and tribulations, and they overcame them by remembering God and manifesting qualities that is actually God's, all these beautiful qualities of wisdom and beauty and generosity and kindness and understanding and so forth, and love, of course. So Rumi, for instance, says that when someone came and asked if heaven is possible, if God is all-powerful, why is there all these trials and tribulations? And Rumi had this to say: if there were no bitter commands, beauty and ugliness, stones and pearls, if there were no Satan, ego and self-will, and if there were no blows, battle and war, then by what name would the king call his servants? How could he say, O patient man, O forbearing man? You see, it's the same point that I was making earlier. How could he say, O brave man, O wise man? So in a way, we earn points by being in this game of this world. Every game has certain rules and regulations. So in this game of the world, if we encounter trials and tribulations, and we are able to overcome by calling forth those qualities that are kind of often remain dormant in us, that God actually breathed into us. The Quran says God breathed His Spirit into man. So those qualities are in a way deep down within us. The Prophet, for instance, also said Adam was made in the image of God. Image doesn't mean God doesn't have an image, but that those qualities of God are inherent within us. So again, but through these experiences, God is letting us know that you have it. All you have to do is to manifest them. So at the end, I might say that the wise man, the man and woman, men and women who follow God, they know that God has a purpose for everything in creation. Nothing is without purpose. Good, evil, trials, tribulations, beautiful, ugly, and so forth. and all these different varieties of creations we see, all these things are helping us to know Him. And when it doesn't make sense, a person of faith should hold on to the faith in God, because God knows and we do not. We know some things, but our knowing is kind of limited. But one thing that do help is to know that God is all-knowing, and nothing He does is without purpose, even if it doesn't meet our requirement of what we think is right and wrong. If we do see injustice, if we do see lack of kindness and so forth, we have a duty to address that, instead of saying, oh, why did God do this or do that? And by responding to the sufferings that we encounter in the world, we bring forth those qualities of God. And that's how we earn points. That's what makes us happier, when we can manifest at whatever level those qualities of God. So I will end with this last quote from Rumi, where he says, all opposites appear as opposites to us and not to God. But the wise man knows that they perform but one task and are not opposites. So in the grand scheme of things, these things, all things have a purpose, and all things are right, and they serve a purpose. I mean, and again, if something does not seem right to us, it is our duty, it is an opportunity for us to do what we think is right. That is not a violation of, that's not a denial that things are happening by God's will, but it's an opportunity for us to bring forth those qualities of God that are hidden within us. Anyway, thank you very much. So this was a talk about God's relationship to the world of great diversity. Thank you very much.